Hey there, so today I'm going to be discussing the ways in which we gender the body within our society. So first we need to start with what gender actually means. Gender is considered a social construct, so what that means is that we create this ideal of gender through our views, our values, perceptions, things that we find important in our cultures. Gender is often confused with sex, which is the biological difference between males and females and intersex people, such as reproductive organs, body hair, hormones, things like that. This is typically seen as a binary construction with masculinity on one end and femininity on the other. Men are more commonly associated with masculinity, whereas female is considered more with femininity. Today we see it more as a line with varying degrees, so you're not all just simply masculinity and all femininity. It's kind of a variance of, you could be more in the middle, which is more androgynous, more towards the masculine side, more towards the feminine side, but either way you do have traits of both. According to Judith Butler's The Socially Constructed Body, Insights from Feminist Theory, the differences between the two can actually mean a lot for some people and can really impact your daily life. So to quote her, she says that feminists have studied areas in which bodies are crucial and found that the social construction of masculine and feminine characteristics represents men as superior. So for example, this could definitely, impact women's stance in culture, because if men are seen as superior overall and they're more masculine, that would in turn make them the more dominant figure in our culture, whereas women would be more oppressed because of these dominant traits. I will further discuss the impacts of masculine and feminine traits on the body and how these actually affect men and women in Western cultures. Masculinity and manhood rely heavily on one another. Many men, but not all, define themselves and others through their level of masculinity. In The Socially Constructed Body, Insights in Feminist Theory, Butler tells the story of a young man who lost his father and felt the need to get big and muscular in order to fulfill his roles as a man. So he eventually becomes a personal trainer and goes on to tell this story to a group in a class. She states that members of a society construct their bodies in ways that comply with accepted views of masculinity and femininity. That is, they try to shape and use their bodies to conform to their culture or racial ethnic group's expectations of how a woman's, man's, girl's, or boy's body should look. In this particular case, the trainer used his body as a physical way to shape his new role as a man. But why would he feel the need to do this? Butler states the reason this is, in Western societies, we expect men to be more aggressive initiators of action and protectors of women and children. Therefore, their bodies must be muscular and physically strong. This puts an undue pressure on men to become bodybuilders and, the action movie stars that we see in popular culture, as well as creates an unrealistic body image for them to actually live up to. One example of this could, very well be Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was a previous California governor and movie star. From his bodybuilding career to action films, Arnold was the epitome of what masculinity should look like according to our society. Femininity is a direct contrast to masculinity, but it's just as strict and rigid with its boundaries. Rather than bulking up and getting big, femininity in Western societies encourages thinness and youth as beauty and accepted beauty standards. Body conforming also starts at a much younger age for women than it does for men. One way women try to conform to this body standard is through extreme dieting and eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia. Butler states anorexia or self-starvation and bulimia or binge eating and induced vomiting are extreme ways to lose weight to meet those Western cultural standards of beauty, and to maintain control over one's body. Eating disorders are extremely difficult to reverse and can even lead to hospitalizations and even death. So women are bombarded with these images reflecting with our culture's beauty standards and expectations every single day. There is a constant reminder of what they should look like and how they're not living up to it, whether it's through TV, the internet, magazines, anywhere where they can really get any sort of outside source information, especially with advertising, is constantly being shown to them. However, in recent years, there have been changes to gender and body image in media. One particular example that I found was very great was the main character of the Hunger Games series, Katniss Everdeen. Not only is the character herself within the books a drastic change in how female leads are portrayed, but her film depiction also depicts her as more natural looking. She doesn't have heavy makeup like most film stars are shown. She's also got kind of a blend of masculine and feminine traits within her actual look. So she's not, running through the forest with heels on. She's not covered in makeup, but she's also not super, buff looking like a guy typically would look in a movie star type of role. One thing to take notice though with Katniss Everdeen's popularity is to notice the use of violence with Katniss Everdeen's strong female role. And even though that's the basis of the book, which is in the Hunger Games, they use a lot of violence in general, it is depicting her kind of badass role with her more masculine side as far as how much violence she actually uses. As I previously mentioned, gender is a binary construct with masculinity and femininity on opposite ends. So how exactly do these two concepts interact with one another within our culture? Karen Martin's Becoming a Gendered Body informs that men and women who perform these gender traits end up embodying them, or becomes deeply part of whom we are physically and psychologically. Gender becomes embedded in our physical movements, our postures, and tensions. Martin further suggests that men use the body as a source of power through masculinity. This would make sense given the body example I gave earlier with the personal trainer and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who use their bodies as a source of dominance and control. Women, on the other hand, view the body in a completely different way. They view the body with much more anxiety. This also relates back to the previous example I used with Western beauty standards and how thinness is highly valued in our culture. So instead of being as big as they can or getting swole, as most guys call it today, women tend to be looking for more of a fragile, thin figure. Being on the extreme ends of this gender spectrum, whether a person identifies as solely masculine or feminine, can have negative outcomes either way. A balance of both of these traits within a person can make for a happier and more positive outcome for the individual, as well as to promote change in our social constructions of gender.